Hopefully, you're enjoying this beautiful Michigan sunshine. We got a couple more people just getting connected here, so we'll give them one more minute, just helping somebody get in, and then we will go ahead and get started. So we're going to talk a little bit about transaction desk, but on the broker side. So I just want to point out, if you've just hopped on this call and you're looking for the traditional transaction desk class, this is not it. This is really going to be just for managers and brokers. And it's really designed around setting up things like task checklist, setting up your form packages, including outside documents and making it easier, as well as legal language in your clauses. So if you are looking for that, you are totally in the right place. If you are simply just looking for Transaction Desk and Authentisign, there is an entire different class for that. So I don't want to waste anybody's time. This is kind of a hard class to teach, as you can imagine, because every brokerage is doing things a little bit different. I'm going to sort of take you through some of the time-saving tips that you're going to want to know when setting up your form packages, when looking at your agent files, when setting up mandatory checklists and things like that. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start off by sharing my screen in just a quick second. I also wanted to let you know that I am recording this class. So if for any reason you need to go back, let's say you decide to set up your packets a couple weeks from now, you can always go back right to that specific section. So we're going to start off there. I'm going to show you where you can find the class recording. I'm going to show you where you can find some helpful cheat sheets, and then we'll get into the actual broker and manager specifics. If you do have any questions today, and I just want to point out that this is really more of an advanced class. So if you do have any questions, feel free to just throw those in the questions box in GoToWebinar. If your GoToWebinar is now minimized, you might see it as a blue flower at the bottom of your tray, or an orange kind of red arrow. If your GoToWebinar is minimized, simply just open that up and you will find right inside there a questions box. Type in any questions that you have along the way. Seeing a lot of familiar associate brokers and brokers. Hello, Lewis. Nice to see you. Hey, Bill. Glad that you're on as well. So, all right, let's get into it. All right, this where we're going to start today is I'm just going to kind of show you very quickly where you can find this class afterward, because obviously I'm going to overwhelm you with a whole bunch of information today. So I want you to know exactly where you can find the class to refer to. Right under the resources section within Paragon, what we've done is we've built an education section. You can go to your Lara or your CE Marketplace to find out how many Con Ed credits you have right from here. You can go into our education corner and sign up for up and coming classes. As a matter of fact, if you are an agent and you've accidentally stumbled upon this call, you want to sign up for the Transaction Desk class, what I did is I set up an online digital catalog of all of our courses. So you can click on the education corner. It will show you every class that's available, but if you are looking for that Transaction Desk class, you can simply click here and register. I am updating the classes today and tomorrow, so you'll have the whole next quarter. This is also where you can join our photography classes, our Roadmap to Success classes, our Listings A to Z class. All of them are listed in here. You simply click on register and it'll sign you up for the webinar. Where you're going to find this particular class, again, going back into Paragon, under resources, you will find recorded webinars. The recorded webinars simply take you to our YouTube channel. We do record almost every single class, including this one, and it will have the class names as well as the date. So if you need to go back, because we are going to be covering some more advanced stuff today, if you need to go back and see something again, just click on that recorded webinars link. It will take you right here. Click on the videos, and you can go right back to that specific point of the class that you may have missed. Okay. So what are the advantages of setting up your packets? And that's where we're going to start today. Really, the whole goal of today's class is how do you make this seamless for your agents? Now more than ever, agents are challenged with which forms they want to use, There are so many form changes. It seems like there's changes to the changes. Most brokerages are changing their listing agreement. MLS documents are constantly changing, and more changes are headed down the horizon. So how do we make this seamless for the agents so that they don't get confused? They're always using the right forms. How do we make forms mandatory? How do we set up those packets so that all of the information, every time an agent goes to write a transaction, it's laid out in front of them? We're also going to show you some ways it can make it easier on your admin if your agents are using TransactionDesk too. So that's where we're going to start. So I just quickly grabbed a listing from my office. And really, the whole key is when an agent is starting a transaction, you want them to start off with your form packages. So I just kind of want to show that first, and then we're going to go into building those next. So let's say Bill is running out, he's writing an offer on this particular property. He's simply going to click that blue splash button, as your agents are going to do, and that's going to take them into the wizard. The key to making this easy is having your listing package or your sales package. In this case, it would be our sales package, right? We're writing a listing on a property that's in the MLS. We now simply want to have all of those forms that our brokerage requires load in for the agent. We don't want the agent to use a wrong form. I can't tell you how many times I go to brokerages and agents are grabbing from their form libraries, and they're grabbing forms from associations they don't even belong to. I was just teaching up in Port Huron a day ago, and that's exactly what they described to me. Well, I've always used this form. And I go, but does your broker belong to that association? Does your broker know you're using that form? They had no idea. And it wasn't even a form the broker approved of. So how do you keep those instances from happening? And it's by setting up your own form package. Now, what people get a little confused about when it comes to form packages is a broker can still have their own outside forms. You may have a form like my company. Bill did a great job putting in our basically our home warranty booklet. That's something you don't have to have customized. You can add that in right now. If you do want your forms to pre-populate, then that's something that has to be done on the TransactionDesk side. But let me give you a kind of a way to save money. If you have a huge form, let's say home warranty brochure, our home warranty brochure, I think is like 10 pages. Well, only one of those pages have the information that needs to auto-populate. The other is just everything it covers, right? That doesn't change, and there's no auto-population needed. So keep in mind, if that's the case, you may just want to create a home warranty form on its own where that auto-populates the client information who's getting the home warranty, and keep your booklet separate. I will tell you there's a cost to set up these forms with auto-population. So you don't want to constantly have to keep changing everything. You don't want to constantly keep adding more pages than you need, because they do charge by the page for your custom forms. So in this case, an agent got all excited. Again, they just showed this beautiful listing. They click on the blue splash here. Now we want to take all of that information from the MLS, but we want the agents to simply be able to grab their buyer packet with all their required buyer forms. And as soon as you do that, as long as you've set up the packet correctly, it should know, oh, well, if they're pulling it from the MLS and someone else has it listed, they're going to immediately be the selling agent. They can change that. If they are representing both sides, they can select that as well. But now I want to go in and I want to obviously create that transaction. So not only is it pulling 90% of what I needed right from that MLS ticket, you can see the auto population is already starting to happen here. We've got our address, our lengthy legal description, township, tax information, year bill, all that's carrying over for the agent. The next step, of course, is when they go into forms, all of the forms that are required for your brokerage are automatically loaded. If they want to preview a form ahead of time, they can do that. I can say, okay, I want to take a look at that form. So they can actually preview the form, making sure that that is the right form that they're thinking of, but it allows it to drop all of those forms in seamlessly. That ensures that they're using the mandatory forms that you, the broker, have already selected. The other thing is if they need to add an additional form, and I tell brokers this all the time, don't make your form packages too enormous. We kind of do that at my brokerage. We make them so big that the agents have to go back and sometimes they have to take forms out. You want to make them generic. Like you don't want to have every form that could possibly be used for this transaction. So meaning, you might want to have a condo sales package that has the condo forms, or maybe an FHA sales package. If you bunch all of those forms into one package, it becomes kind of cumbersome for the agents to get through. So just it's personal preference. You can do it either way. I have worked with a lot of brokers to set up the packages so that they're in a little bit smaller bite sizes so that the agents don't have so many forms to remove if they're not selling that particular type of transaction. Okay, so jumping forward, we've got our forms all set up in here. If I jump back one step, you can see it's also loading the listing agent. Because I clicked that button, it knows that I'm immediately the sales agent. So it's a lot less guessing that the agents have to fill out in their packet. Okay. The next thing is documents. So this is, I think, the hardest part for brokers to kind of grasp. So let me kind of break this down, and then we're going to go into making the form packages. Forms and documents. When I got my license 25 years ago, forms and documents meant the same thing to me. It's a little bit different in this system, though. A form is any outside form where your agents are basically filling in the blanks, right? However, documents are different. Documents are going to be anything additional you want to add outside of the fillable forms. So if you have an office checklist, maybe, if you have a turn-in sheet that you require, things like that are going to be considered documents. For an agent, it's going to be things like a copy of the pre-approval check or a copy of the pre-approval letter, a copy of maybe the EMD check. Those types of things are outside. They're obviously not pre-filled out forms. So agents can add them in, but you can add them in. So if you have marketing pieces for your firm, adding those into documents. So when your agents are emailing those documents over to their clients to sign, great information about your company and who you are and maybe your footprint in the industry, all of those can be sent along with those documents too, and they can be added right here in this document section. Okay, so enough about me talking. I just kind of wanted to show you how easy it is for the agents when you've made these packets up. So let's actually start there. There are two places as a broker that you can customize TransactionDesk. On the very left side, right over here, is where you're going to find most of your broker tools. At the upper corner where your little, kind of like your picture or your avatar is right here, that's also where you have your broker settings, where you can kind of control it even further. But let's start off with our form packages. So we're going to go over here to the left side, and you're going to see you're going to see broker tools here. One caveat is if you are not, when we get to the broker dashboard, if you are not seeing yourself in the super user role, that means that you don't have the appropriate permissions to go in and customize this. You have to be listed as a super user in order to be able to set up packages for your office, to be able to add clauses for you can set up your own if you don't have that permission. But hopefully everybody today is either a broker or a manager and has that super user role. If not, reach out to me and we'll make sure that you get it. But it is important, otherwise you won't be able to set things up for the firm. All right, so the first one we're going to look at is we're going to go to templates. So it's the second one from the bottom. And there are two types of templates listed here. There's checklists, which we're going to go over in a moment, but we're going to start off with transaction templates. Basically, think of these as your form packages. They're those big, ugly, they used to be those big, ugly file folders, we'd pull out and keep in our cars. And then the agent would use it 2 years after it was in its car and the whole form had changed. Remember those days? So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to ensure that the agents are constantly using the latest forms. So we're going to go into transaction templates. If you see the two, the kind of like two entities there, you know that this packet is available for your entire office to use. If you are only seeing one user, that means it's your personal, you're the only one who can see it or use it. So that's important to note. This is going to be the same in checklists and many of the other areas that we look at today. So right here, I can see my company as a buyer packet. I can also see my personal packets. What we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to set up a brand new transaction packet. So we're going to go in, we're going to click add, and we just want to tell it, who are we making this for? So in this case, I'm going to say I'm going to make it for my office. If you want, and this happens a lot, I get this call probably once a week. We have 5 or 6 super users at a firm, and they are all creating or adding different things. And the broker says, you know what? I don't want anyone to edit the template. I want it to be just the way I set it up. I don't want anyone changing or modifying it. You can lock that template from other super users, meaning that you, the creator, by the way, if you have a brokerage where there are multiple super users, this is a very good idea if you're setting it up and you do not want it changed. Keep in mind, if you're setting this up and you have 5 super users on your account, they can go in and make these changes unless you are locking it. So just keep that in mind. Now, if you have an admin who does all that for you, then that's fantastic. That might be a great system for you. If you have multiple super users like my company does, where they can go, multiple people can go in and touch these templates, then I would totally recommend doing that. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to give our transaction template a name. And I'm going to just call this so I can delete it right away here. So Bill, who's on our call, doesn't say, hey, what's that test listing packet? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create my form package name. You could put a description. Again, if you wanted to name it condo listing packet, something like that, you could do that. But the important step is you wanted to know who's creating the package. Is it the selling agent? Is it the listing agent? So if I select residential listing, it's going to know that this packet is going to be used on the listing side, and therefore the agent creating it is going to be listed automatically as the listing agent. Now, they, of course, can change that. Maybe they're writing an offer at the same time. Maybe they're going to be a dual agent. You can, of course, change that. But basically, I'm putting in a description here. Now, we're going to talk a lot about checklists and mandatory documents and other things like that in a moment. But this is where you can go in and you can add in those forms and those documents. So literally, we've named our packet, and now we want to go pick what's going to be part of our packet. So we're going to go down to the form section to get started. I'm going to click on add, and that's going to show me the dozens and dozens of libraries that obviously you can choose from. So if I am creating a listing, well, one of the important forms that I would recommend is going to be the copyright form on the listing side, making sure that you get the copyrights from either a photographer or a seller. Especially if you're having your photos professionally taken, you do want to make sure you've got that copyright form in there. You want to make sure you have the data form. You want to make sure you've got your lead-based paint disclosure. So what I tell brokers, because there's so many forms in here, grab your forms packet out of your drawer. Literally just go through it and make sure every form that's in your form packet is now in here. So in a real life case scenario, we would obviously want our agency. If you have company specific forms, you may mix some company specific forms as well as some local association or even the Michigan Association of Realtor forms. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm a huge fan of the auto population in the data sheet. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to grab my disclosure of agency. I'm going to obviously add those two in, but I also need my Michigan Association of Realtor lead-based paint and seller's disclosure. So I'm going to go to the Michigan Realtor Library, and I'm going to grab the forms I need from here. So I'm just going to kind of scroll down. Let me fit quickly. Wish my eyes were better. I find myself squinting more these days. I'm just going to grab a couple of these just for the sake of time, but you kind of get the idea. If there is a particular form, like seller's disclosure, you can also type it in the search here and it will come right up. So instead of having to do that every single time, if you're looking, let's say, for an FHA form, when you're setting up your packet, you can type that in that find box right here, and I can see all the FH. So if I was setting this up for my company, I was doing a buyer packet, I can see this is the FHA for my company. I can see GMAR has one, Gross Point has one, and I can choose the appropriate form. So if you have a big long list and you're trying to figure out which form is it that you wanted to add to your packet, that's an easy kind of a cheat to see everything without having to open each package up. So once you have these in your packet, I kind of like to put them in a particular order, but that's probably because I have OCD. Like every towel in my closet is the same color, folded the same way in a perfect row, right? So when you are putting these in your packet, even if you select them just as the way that you're throwing them in, you can grab them as you see here, and you can drag them into the appropriate order. So for me, in my listing packet that I use, I like my disclosure to be first. I like my listing agreement to be the next form. And so you're literally able to just drag and drop them into the position that you want. So if you have company specific forms, they will be in your own library. And here's a little tip that I turned my brokerage onto just a couple of months ago. If your agents are seeing a huge long list of libraries, you want your library to be at the top of the list. So here's a little tip. You can label your library with something like just a dot before it. That allows it to be at the top of the list, and so that they're using your forms first. Because if the agent has to constantly scroll all the way to the bottom, you know what happens? They simply click the one that they see first and they try to find the forms, and that's always a nightmare. So you want your company forms to be right at the top. So if I were doing that, and by the way, you can have more than one library, as you can see from my company, but if I were doing that, I would now go in and grab, obviously, all of the forms that my brokerage would use. So again, maybe I want to offer a home protection plan. Maybe I want to use our exclusive right to list. I can add that. I'm going to add in my exclusive addendum, my listing agreement, all the things that would be required. You simply hit add. And again, now is when I would go in and I would move those into position. So in my real life transactions, I would want my disclosure of agency on top. I obviously want my listing agreement next. So you're literally just dragging them into place. If you go over to the right, oops, let me go ahead. If you go over to the right, there are some menu dots. This is where if you've grabbed a bunch of forms and you're not sure that's the exact one you wanted to use, the menu dots will allow you to kind of do a quick preview, because some of them sound a lot like, there's like 5 different data forms. There's 5 different disclosures in here. So if you kind of want to just do a quick preview of the form, you can right click and do that form preview. You can remove a form if you made a mistake. You can also add a mandatory lock. And what that means is the agent cannot remove that form. If there's a form that they absolutely have to have in there that you don't want them to have the ability to remove, you can actually lock it, so there is no ability for them to remove that form. That's a required document. You can also, we're going to cover this in just a couple of moments, but you can also create a placeholder where literally it requires the agent to add a document in a certain or specific period of time, so that you can review it at your front desk. Many people do that for the EMD, copy of the EMD check on the purchase side. All too often we go a couple of weeks and all of a sudden the broker is getting ready to close and, oh, wait, we forgot to collect the EMD check, right? And that becomes kind of a problem. So many brokers will actually lock that in, that they want a picture, a copy attached of the EMD 48 hours after bottom line or whatever your policy is at your brokerage. You can also, I'm going to click on the edit form too. You can go into a form and you can actually edit something on the form that will stay as part of your template. So if there was something you wanted to pre-select, maybe you wanted to pre-select the type of agency. Maybe you wanted to pre-select a transaction fee that you're charging. Maybe you have language you really want to put in on your listing agreement that says in an area that says, hey, we're going to collect a transaction fee of X amount of dollars. you absolutely can do that. You can actually put in the language even, and then leave a blank where maybe you have agents who charge different transaction fees, which by the way, that always scares me. But if you have agents who are charging different transaction fees, you can leave a blank and they can actually fill in that transaction fee amount. So I see that quite often. So keep in mind, not only can you create the packets of forms, choosing the forms, but you can make them mandatory and you can add in your own language on the packet. So when they go in to pull up those forms and they're using the packet, you can actually have pre-inserted clauses or information on those forms. All right, I just saw the question box pop up, so let me see what we got. Okay, Paula, I will reach out to you directly after, and I will make sure that we get you set up with that. So thanks so much for letting me know. And it's hard to know because there is nothing on your account to tell you until you really get into it. So definitely, I will help you out with that directly after. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so once inside the form itself, remember that you can add in language, but I want to show you a couple other things on the transaction template that not a lot of people know are there. So I'm just going to exit out of here. There's no saving or anything you have to do. All you really have to do is name it and then put the forms in that you choose. So now if I go back to that drop down, and I'm going to apologize if you hear loud noises and banging. They decided 15 minutes before this webinar, I kid you not, to lay fiber optic cable outside of my house. So there is a giant machine making a lot of ruckus out here. So I apologize if you're hearing all that banging. It's just the luck of doing this live. I mean, you couldn't have planned that at a worse time. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down here. So here are all the forms that we just added. Again, if you've made a mistake, those dots to the right, that's how you're going to delete it. That's how you can add that mandatory lock, edit the forms, or even take a look at the form just to make sure. So you're probably thinking, okay, well, what is the documents and folders for? Okay, so let's go there next. If I click on that plus, it gives you the ability to add those outside forms. You can also add folders so that the agents can easily access those forms and they know what they're for. So for instance, maybe I want to create a folder for home warranty forms. Maybe you offer a couple different home warranties and you want to have the home warranty booklets in there. You can go in and you can put multiple home warranty brochures right in here. Maybe you have a huge footprint in the market and you want to bring in information about your company and who you are. So not only can you create file folders in there to help keep your agents organized, but you can also create those documents. You can pull in those marketing pieces that you may have. So I'm going to click add document. It's so easy to bring in almost anything. You can add up to 20 files at one time. Watch how easy this is. So I am I'm going to pretend for a moment that this is my company marketing program. I am literally going to grab it, drag it onto the drag and drop strip, and it's that easy. So, and again, and I had a lady on my last call. I know it's kind of an advanced class, but she did tell me she's very uncomfortable with the dragging and dropping process. And I understand everybody's got their own thing, right? If you are not comfortable with the dragging up to 20 documents on there, which I think is quite easy, again, you're going to grab it, literally drag it from your computer onto that strip. But if you don't like that process, you can also click on that strip. Let me show you that. So I'm going to go into add here, and I am going to add a new document. If you don't like the drag and drop, you can email things in, you can scan things in, but I just want to go in, I'm going to click on drag and drop, and I'm going to say, oh, okay, I'm just going to grab, maybe I want to grab 3 or 4 of these, just to give you kind of an idea, right? I'm just going to grab them, hit open, and you can see how quickly it loads all of those. Just like I told you before, you can put these in any order you wish. If you've got something in there that you don't want, you can certainly just click on that trash can and you can remove that as well. So you can bring in those outside pieces so that when agents are setting up their packet, they don't forget to add information about the company. Also, it keeps your marketing kind of consistent. So very easy to make transaction templates. Let me go back for just a moment where we got here. So if we go over here to the left, we're going to click the second button from the bottom, transaction templates. And now I can see all of my company transaction templates. Again, you're going to be looking for the ones with 2 entities. And don't worry, Bill, I'm deleting that packet so no one at our company sees it. And it's that easy to remove a packet as well. So you can also go in and update a packet. So if I wanted to go in and update Colleen's listing packet or a packet that the company created, I can go back in and I can go into the forms and I can adjust what forms are showing up. Again, you can remove them or even add additional. So really easy. You can see you really can't screw it up. What I do recommend is after you've got that packet set up, just do a test transaction. Just make sure everything looks exactly as you want it to when it's dropped in, so you know the exact order of the forms and you can kind of give it one more eyeball. It's always kind of a good policy. Okay, so next, I am a huge fan of clauses, and especially right now with all of the MLS practice changes that have gone on within our lawsuit. There's also some things I think coming down the pike that we are going to want to have pre-set up language for the agents to choose from. And why I think that's going to be so important is, and Tim, a good friend of mine, he says, Colleen, you're not an attorney. You shouldn't have to create your own legal language. And that is very smart. It makes my broker very nervous if I were to come up with my own legal language, right? We have attorneys and we have brokers for just that. So instead of allowing an agent who just got their license last week to come up with their own legal language that probably will end up in some issue at some point, it's much better if I can simply choose from what my brokerage has already set up. So for instance, if you have language talking in your purchase agreement, maybe you want to reference that the seller is providing a concession or the seller to provide the buyer X amount in commission or concession or whatever you're looking for. It could be a carpet concession. It could be whatever you want it to be. You can predetermine how you want the agents to have that language. So let me show you what I mean. You basically are creating a library of all these different types of scenarios that your agents can just pick from. So, and I've done it myself where you get the seller concession language just perfect and you think, oh my gosh, that sounds great. And the next time you sit down and you're in a hurry and you're like, how did I word that? It was so good last time. It doesn't sound quite as good this time. So that's when you want to really put those into a clause. Examples would be home inspection clauses. Buyer has 7 to 10 days to complete their home inspection in writing. All results must be, things like that. If you are asking for appliances and you want that worded in a certain way. If your company has a home warranty that they offer and you want to put, home warranty to be applied to sale not to exceed X amount of dollars. All of that can be predetermined for the agents in what we call clauses. Now, I always get to this point and I always kind of get the same question. I don't have that. Well, if you don't have this clause button, it means that you or anyone in your firm has never set one up. So if you don't see this button, the minute we go in and we add some clauses, you will start to see it. So don't panic, I promise, it's there. But let me kind of give you a couple examples. So clauses can be used on a form. In this case, let's say we're talking about items included. I can go in to the clause library and I can choose from my office clauses, or agents can set up their own personal clauses. So for me, again, my OCD kicking in, right? I'd like to have folders that I can just pull from. So my brokerage has a home warranty. I want to be able to pull home warranty clauses right from my home warranty folder. I don't want to go through a list of 700 clauses and try to figure out which one is the right one for the home warranty. So you can set up these helpful file folders. If I'm ready to insert that, so let's say we are asking the seller to make sure all debris has been removed and is broom swept before closing. Instead of me coming up with that language, or a buyer has 7 to 10 days to complete home inspection, I can literally just click what my broker has already set up and I can insert that much easier. So again, all you have to do is pick the all the agent has to do is pick the location, go to the clauses. They can add multiple clauses in one location too. I go into my office clauses. Maybe this is where I want to do my seller to contribute. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to pull that language right in. So now I'm using exactly what my broker, so he's, I've got a blank here. I can go in, I can change that percentage. I can change that dollar amount, but I'm still using what my broker has predetermined as the right language. So I hope that makes sense. It's a lot easier than having to go to court and try to justify what that clause meant because the agent just got their license 2 weeks ago and they're trying to write this on their own. We've all seen those. Or the clauses where it says something, but we can't really determine what it says. So an easy way to eliminate that from happening is to just simply set up your own clause library. Again, you could actually just put that right into you could also just put that right into the form itself if you wanted to do that. So, excuse me. So think of this left side over here this is where you can create those really easy items like transaction packages where you can create those clauses. So clauses is the third one from the bottom. Kind of think of these as your broker tools if you want. Clauses is the third one from the bottom. By the way, you will know if you are an office admin when you can create an office clause. So if there was one question that came in, am I a super user? Well, you're going to know when you go to create a clause if you are a super user or not, because that will determine if you can't create it for your office, you have no super user power. Think of it like being a superhero. All right, so we're going to go up here to the top and we're going to add a new clause. Again, clauses can be created on 3 levels. Let me just go back. Clauses is right over here. It's right above where we were. You can add a clause on a personal level for an agent. They can add an office clause. That means everybody in the brokerage is going to see it. And right now, we currently don't use what you see here under system clauses. That's if the MLS wanted to create clauses, but we really leave that to the brokerages to do. So we're going to go into office clauses, and we're going to create a clause. Now, again, you could add a new folder here. Maybe you have a commission clause. Maybe you have a home warranty clause. You can create that subfolder so it's very easy for the agents, especially if you're doing a lot of, if you're doing a lot of different clauses. I had one brokerage, they had something like 30 or 40, and the agents were having to scroll through each time. Then they don't use them, right? They're trying to find them. They can't find what they want. It's much easier to just create that file folder and have them available. So if we want to create a new clause, we just click on new, and you're going to give your clause a title. So I'm going to say, let's call this test again. I want to mess up Bill's clauses here. Test home warranty clause. You can copy and paste. If your attorney has given you language, you can copy and paste that in here. And you can use blanks. Again, you can use check boxes. You can have the date that they apply it automatically inserted. You can have a time that they apply it automatically inserted. So you can do that as well. So it just kind of makes it easy, but you're literally just going to type in your clause information. This one you do hit save on, and you can see immediately that is now available for the office. And you can see that again because it has those 2 people next to it. Okay, so that is a great way to take some of the risk out, right, of agents creating their own legal language. I'm going to go ahead. By the way, you can also move these. Once you create those file folders, probably should have showed that, you can move them to a particular file folder. So that's how they get moved. You just create them, and then you move them to the folder you want them to apply. All right. See if we have any more questions here. Right, again, if you do have any questions, don't be afraid to throw them in that questions box. Like I said, this is probably one of the harder classes I teach because everybody's kind of doing something different. Most of our classes are kind of middle of the road, right, and easy to teach because everybody's kind of creating a transaction the same way. This one's a little bit more challenging because every brokerage has got some niche or something that they may be doing different. Some own ancillaries, some don't. Some have custom forms, some don't. Okay. So let's go up a little bit and let's talk about some of the broker tools. There are some settings that you want to look at when you're setting up your brokerage. And there's everything from transferring of transactions to assuming an agent. If you are a broker in Paragon, you can already assume your agent, meaning I can go in and assume their identity as a broker to see what they're working on, to see their transactions. So my admin can maybe put in a new listing for them. So there's already that key in Paragon. This gives you the ability to do that on the transaction side, if you will. So if I go into my agent list here, and Bill, this is a good one for you since you're on the call. I rarely get people from our office taking this. So you can see who is a super user for your firm. So we have, and Bill, I should probably bring this up. We have a lot of people. Our list definitely probably needs to be cleaned up. We've got a lot of people on here that may have the super user that maybe aren't using the super user features or maybe aren't interested in using the super user features anymore. Any super user will be listed with a star. And by the way, one thing to note is the people in TransactionDesk do not get deleted when you remove someone from Paragon. And as I go through here, I can see there are a few people that we probably have to clean up. What happens is when you turn in your form to the MLS and you say this agent, let's say the agent put their license in holding, or an agent went to another brokerage. We take care of all of that. We take their listings. Listings belong to the broker. So unless you tell us differently, we revert those listings to you as the broker. In this system, everything stays unless you, the broker, say that person's not with us anymore. So if a person leaves the firm, they are all taken care of and their listings are all taken care of in the MLS, and we take care of all of that for you. We turn off all of their programs so they can't get in any longer, but it doesn't remove the agent, and there's a reason. The broker owns the transactions. Okay. So when an agent leaves, you have all the risk of the file, right? And you have to decide if you are going to release that file for the agent to take if it's maybe pending, or if you are going to continue on that transaction road. So when you have agents in here, even if they've left, it does not remove the agent from your list because it wants you to be able to go back and see their transactions. However, at some point, you do want to clean that up, especially if you're a large broker. Over to the right, this is where you can impersonate an agent. It's also where you can remove super user access or remove the agent altogether. When you delete an agent, if they have files going on, those files will revert to you as the broker. So not only can you go in and see who is the super user, but you can also make them a super user. So if you have someone in your firm who is going to be handling the day-to-day transactions and you want them to be a super user to review files, you want them to be able to set up your packets, set up your clauses, this is how you give them that ability. So if I wanted, let's say, and I don't really know who I would pick on here, but let's say I wanted Sean here to be a super user, I could disable him being a super user or add him as being a super user. So you have the ability as the broker to decide who can go in and do these items. But remember, with that, you want to make sure that you're giving it to that responsible person who's always going to do the right thing, right? Because they could delete your packages inadvertently. You want to make sure that you know exactly who you're giving on that too. But I like the fact that this is something they recently added, you now can actually see who has the super user access for your firm. Okay, but little case in point, again, you do want to make sure that you clean that list of agents up, because I know if your agent count is 400 and you see 700 agents here, there's probably some cleanup that needs to be done. Okay, all right, so moving over, if I go over to the right, that is where you can impersonate an agent. So I am going to use my good friend Sandy here. She happens to be married to our CIO. So I'm going to impersonate her for just a moment. If you want to go in and see transaction files as the agent, what the agent is working on, what transactions they have, if they have signings going on, it will tell you that you are impersonating that person. It's the same thing as our assume identity in Paragon. If you have an agent who goes rogue, meaning you haven't seen him in a while, you can go in and you can see what they're working on. So I'm just going to go in and add one thing really quick. So if there is an overdue item or you haven't seen that particular agent in a while, this is a great way to go in and see what they're working on. You can also set up a broker dashboard, but if I want to see what transaction agent A has, I can click into the transaction. I can see what's been signed, where they are in the process. I can see all of that. However, nobody wants to have to do that. Like in poor Bill's case, he's got, 400 agents to babysit. So how do you do that easily and efficiently? And what I would recommend is setting up what we call the broker dashboard. It's kind of like if you've ever used .loop before. I'm not a huge .loop fan, but if you've ever used .loop before, you kind of have these loops where you, as the broker, can see and approve things. Same concept here. So I'm going to stop impersonating Sandy for just a moment. So you could go in and see it agent by agent, especially if you have an agent who's gone rogue. But you can also set up a broker dashboard to see everything on one screen, meaning you can see all new transactions that have been created. You can see what's due. You can see what agent is out in the field working and creating stuff at a glance. So let me show you the transaction dashboard. When an agent goes in, let me just switch this over for just a moment. I have the super user, but I also am an agent as well. So kind of want to just show you both sides. So when an agent goes in, they have an agent dashboard. So they can see exactly what they want. And they can customize these dashboards. Most of us just use our transaction dashboard, quite honestly, as an agent. But as an agent, you can customize this dashboard. So I could see everything that my broker, maybe if I had a rejected document, I forgot to sign something, I could see that easily. If I wanted to see anything that was overdue, that I owed my brokerage, I can literally grab what I want to be on my dashboard and set this up so that everything, and by the way, you can make them larger or smaller, just like you can in the transaction dashboard, and then I can lock it into place. So that's what an agent's going to see. If you are a selling broker, meaning that you have an agent account and a brokerage account, you toggle back and forth from here. Some brokers don't sell, some brokers do. But I can toggle from the agent view. So I can see my own personal stuff really quickly, but I can now also see what's going on in the brokerage. Same concept with the brokerage. You're going to unlock this lock, and you literally can now drag what you want to be part. Now, I personally, these blue ones over here, I would just remove. You can do all of that on the left side of your screen. You really don't need a special place on your dashboard. But maybe you want to see how many transactions were written in the month. I actually already have that one on there. Maybe I want to see all transactions for the firm. I want to see all my agents. I want to see what form packages I have set up. I want to see transactions by the office. So you can do all of those things, and you literally just drag what's important to you onto that dashboard. Just remember, once you've got your dashboard all set up, you want to go ahead and lock it into place. So if you want to see any messages that the agents left, if you want to, again, if you wanted to review files as the broker, this dashboard just makes it easy to do all those things in one place. All right, so hopefully that is making sense. All right, let's go into some of the other broker functions. So I'm going to go back to broker tools. And I want to, and Bill, you'll like this one because we were just talking about this the other day. Talking about setting up forms so agents don't miss signatures, talking about setting up the forms so the agents don't have to spend a lot of time. This is probably the number one thing I hear from agents is, oh my gosh, the agent had their client sign in the wrong place, or oh my gosh, they missed an entire signature area of the form. And of course, we only really start reviewing that, right, when there's a problem. So what if I told you there's a way that you could set up the forms for auto tagging so that no signatures were able to be missed and only the right person is signing in the right area, meaning where it says seller, We do not want the buyers signing there, obviously. The more work we take off of the agent's plate and automate it, the more accurate things are going to be, let's face it, because many agents, let's face it, there's turnover in real estate. Many agents are just getting familiar with selling, let alone the forms, or they miss an area of the form. So you can actually require signatures to be placed in the appropriate places on your forms. So that's a big key thing. For the association forms, those are generally done automatically at TransactionDesk. So when we're talking about forms, we're really talking about your company or your specific forms. So I'm just going to kind of show you on my specific forms. If, let's say, Bill goes in and he is looking at, and we'll use the new listing agreement because this one does not have it set up yet. All right, so Bill says, I want to eliminate any mistakes on a purchase agreement, or I want to eliminate any mistakes or people signing in the wrong place on a document. So Bill can find that form in his list of company forms. So you'll see that right here, this is my company specific library. And again, a company can have more than one library. If you don't have any company specific forms, then this is probably a step you can eliminate or bypass altogether. But for us, we have a brand new listing agreement that was just completed recently with all of the changes. So I'm going to go to the menu dots over here to the right, and I'm going to say, I want to set this up for my agents. I want to have all the signatures that they're going to need to collect on the listing side. And I want to pre-tag it. So if they're using Authentisign, they don't have to guess where everybody's supposed to sign. It's literally going to be set up for them. So here on this particular form, you can see it starts off as a buyer. We know a buyer is not going to sign the listing form. But the reason it does that is if it's a purchase agreement, obviously agents could be on the buy side or the list side, right? So it has to tag them in the appropriate place. The other thing to know is if there is only, let's say that you tag it for 2 buyers or 2 sellers, or in this case, you could put up to 4 buyers. It's only going to tag it for the amount of people the agent adds. So if you set it up for 4 buyers, let's say, which is kind of overkill, but if you do that, and the agent only has 1 buyer, only 1 buyer set of tags is going to appear. So it's a smart form. It basically knows if the agent has 1 seller, only give us 1 set of blocks for that first seller. If the agent has 2 buyers, then set up 2 places for the buyer. So it's kind of a smart form. It actually does. It's very intuitive, and it will do a lot of this for you as the broker. All right, so let's take a look at the listing agreement. So in this case, we know that there is going to be a seller. If you have, let's say that you have a listing agreement where they are initialing at the bottom of each page, you would obviously grab the initial block and add it to that page. Now, again, if there's 2 sellers, I could do the same thing. I generally do 1 seller and then the other, but I could do the same thing for seller 2. Now I've tagged this form for the traditional 2 sellers. It does allow you to tag for more if you need to. Some people have 4 signature blanks on their listing agreement. That's why I said this class is a little harder sometimes to teach because everybody does it a little bit different. You could have all, let me show you this too. You could, if you have a form like a purchase agreement, our purchase agreement has them initial at the bottom of all pages. So there's a little tag right here that says initial pages. So I can click the initial pages at the bottom, and I can put that on all of the pages. So again, there are a lot of different tools in here, but in this case, let me kind of show you that one more time because it took a second to open, where it says initial pages. This is if you have a purchase agreement where your buyers and sellers are initialing every page and you don't want to have to do that one by one. Watch how cool this is. So we're going to say at the bottom left is where the sellers are going to initial. And you can include a spot for all. I'm just going to include a spot for the first 2. Okay. And I'm going to say you could do that on all pages, but I think on most, purchase agreements, and I'm just kind of doing this roughly. Again, everybody has something different. It's usually initial on 1 through 6, but on page 7, it's the actual signatures, not the initials. So you can actually put the seller's initials, or in your case, if you're doing sellers and buyers on your purchase agreement, do you see how it applied those seller tags to the bottom of each form? So I don't have to do it one by one by one. Same thing. If this was, we'll pretend for just a moment that this is a purchase agreement and that we also are having our buyer's initial there. So in this case, we're going to do initial pages. Who's going to be signing? We're going to say our buyers. We're going to do that on we did the sellers on the left, so we're going to align it to the bottom right. And again, I'm just going to set it for 2 buyers. Our buyers are signing the last page, so we don't want initials on the last page, just the first 6. And there you go. So hopefully that's given you kind of an idea of how you can initial all of those pages quickly. If there are optional initials, you can certainly drag those into any particular area, like yes, I want a home warranty, or no, I don't want a home warranty. There are also radio buttons that you can add. I'm not sure if everybody knows what a radio button is, so I will just tell you. A radio button is really convenient if you don't want them to be able to choose. You literally want them to pick one or the other. Let me give you kind of an example, because I know it sounds confusing. If you are asking, let me try to find it on my own personal form. Again, this just recently changed. So if you are asking and you want to leave it optional, especially right now, right? If you are asking them, yes, do you want to include a concession? No, do you not want to include a concession? If you made that optional, they could check yes and no. And let's face it, that's what most sellers do, right? They do not understand these forms. Probably if your good agent is sitting with them, going over it line by line, and hopefully they are anyway, they could walk them through that. But if they're signing with e-signatures and you want to make it yes or no, not giving them an option, but they have to pick one, because yeah, it's either yes or no in this case, right? You don't want it to be optional and pick both. In that case, that's what the radio buttons are for. Radio buttons give them a choice, but they can only pick one of the choices. So in this case, they can pick yes or no. So Bill, little point, when you're setting these up, yes or no, again, would be an option for Authentisign, so that they aren't picking both. They have to pick one, and they can't leave without selecting one. If they make a mistake and they pick the other, it just grays out the other one. So it's giving them, instead of making it an option, it's saying, okay, you have a choice between A and B. So it makes it a little bit easier when it comes to setting up the templates. You can have the date automatically applied. Signer's name can automatically be applied. So let's say we want, go back to my own form. As you can see, we don't initial at the bottom of this form. This is in fact a signing form. So what I want to do is I want to have seller 2 sign, seller 2 sign here. And I want to, again, have the signer's name pre-printed here. Then, of course, I want to change it over to seller 1. And I want to have the sign here for seller 1. And it tells you right there. So you really can't mess this up. I know I'm going through it kind of quickly, and you're probably thinking, the lady with the fuzzy hair, she talks so fast. That's exactly why I'm recording it, because it's a lot of information. And these are certainly not the traditional things. So you want to make sure that you're getting them right. All right, so then again, if you want the time and date applied, you can go ahead and add the contract date here. It will also add the timestamp to the receipt. If you right click on an option, if you make a mistake, don't worry, you can always delete it. So if I didn't want the date there, I can go ahead and hit delete. Remember that it auto dates. So when the agent is sending it out, they will see the stamp that you're seeing right here. But when the client goes to sign it, it will auto date for when they are signing it. Okay, lastly, I would set up the agent name here, or I'm sorry, the seller name. So you can see that I've moved all of the appropriate places. Again, if you've got that listing agent, now I can see that they are going to be signing here. So same process, right? I'm going to grab the sign here for the listing agent, auto date it when they sign it. And then I want to add the printed agent name. Okay, so pretty self-explanatory, nothing really hard there. If you wanted to add text to this area, so let's say you got, now I would really recommend doing the text right in the template, because if they print it out, you want that text to be there. This would only be if they are signing it. So a good example of this is there's a brokerage that I'm aware of that has a special disclaimer for using the e-signs that agents can electronically witness. They put it right in their contract. So if you're doing something like that, where you're putting a disclaimer that is only going to apply to electronic or digital signatures, by the way, this is a digital signature, which is more secure, just in case you were wondering. If you wanted a disclaimer to be there under other provisions for that, then I would add it in here. But if it was a disclaimer like regarding concessions or commissions, I would do that in the template, because remember, you can put language that you want the agents to use right in your template. All right, looks like we got a couple more questions, so let me just pause. I don't go too far ahead. Is it safest to go ahead and set up 4 signers? You could do that. You absolutely could. The only thing is, if you only have 2 signature lines, I would really just set up 2, because you don't want, it to look all wonky. But if you have a form that accompanies up to 4 signature lines, absolutely do that. I would have it match your signature lines is what I would do. So very good question. So the question was, I'm sorry, is it good to just go ahead and set up all 4 at one time? The answer is you could, but if you've only got 2 signature lines, it's going to look kind of wonky. So I would just set up how many signature lines you have. Also, can super users do this themselves, or only people with the permissions? If so, the permissions must be able. So great question. Any super user on your account can go in and do this. And that's why for us, Phil, we definitely want to go through that list. There are a lot of super users in our account that haven't been there in years. And so it's a really good policy to go in and probably remove those people. But yes, any super user can help out with this activity. As I mentioned, for anybody on this call that needs help, I'm more than happy to go in and help you set up your super users, as well as to set up your form packets. So, but yes, Bill, if you need any help, let me know and I'll be happy to help out with ours too. But basically, once you have the form all tagged, there's just one more step. So I'm going to kind of bring this down here. You're going to go up to save here at the top. Once you have all of your tags in position, it says, okay, we've got our tags ready, but there's another step. So I'm going to leave here. Just because you tagged it doesn't mean that all of the agents see it. There is one final step that you want to do. You want to release it to the firm, because you want to be able to go in and tag them and get them ready, but only the ones that have an R next to them are available for everyone in your firm to use. So there's 2 steps. There's tagging it up, but sometimes after you tag it, you want someone else to take a look at it, kind of do a quick view of, okay, does that look, how does that look? Does that look, did I miss any spots? Is there anything you want to have auto applied here? So there's 2 steps. You can tag it, and then you can have another super user review it. When you're ready to make it available to your firm, that's when you go over to the menu dots to the right. And in this case, I'm going to use this one here, and you can see if it's unreleased. So if I want to unrelease a form that's available, I can click it. If I want to make that form now available, I can also do that. So there's 2 steps. There's tagging it all up, And then there's now releasing it. So you can see this has a U next to it. This is the listing agreement we just did. It is unreleased. R means the firm can see it and those tags are there and ready to use. N means there's no tags anywhere on the form. U means it's tagged up, but no one can see it. So if I go to this listing agreement and I see, okay, it's tagged and ready, maybe I have another super user take a second look at it just to make sure I got everything. I go over to the menu dots to the right, and now I release it to the firm. If I don't like the tags that are on there, I can go ahead and delete it and start again. Okay, or you can just go in and edit it. So if I miss something, I can go in and edit it, but there's one final step before everyone else in the firm can see it. You've got to go in and do that release process. So that gives you some time to work on them, have a second set of eyes, and then release them out to the firm. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. I know it's a little more complicated on this side. It's not as much fun to teach because, again, everybody's kind of got their own differences here. But let's go back to the broker tools once again. Transaction transfers. So if you have an agent who's leaving and you have that turned on, or you delete someone, remember they are going to go to the super user. It's usually the first super user who is set up, by the way. So whenever a agent is deleted, if they have files, they do go to that super user so that the super user can continue to watch those files, or the super user can delete them as well. Okay, back to the left. Office tasks and checklists. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Checklists are basically a series of tasks that your brokerage requires. And Bill, for us, this would be kind of like what we do in command, right? Where we're requiring certain documents, and if they're not signed, you know, we get the notices. I hate to say, as an agent, occasionally even I get those notices. But it's basically a way to make sure everybody stays on task. And it's also a way that you can require certain documents to be turned in. Now, for us, we use something different, but for other brokers on the call, you may be looking for a way to do that. And TransactionDesk allows you to do that. So I'm just going to show you very quickly on the agent side what a task is, and then I'm going to show you as a broker how you can go in and mandate those tasks. So if I go over to the right, as an agent, and agents can do this as well. They can't require it or make it mandatory for an office, but they can certainly set up a task. So let me give you a couple examples, and then we'll put one together. So our first example would be, as an agent, one of the things I always forget to do, I hate to say this, is I always forget about the final water read till the last minute. And then I'm like trying to get somebody to the house and I don't have enough time. So for me, a good task would be order a final water read. It might be install a sign at your firm. So these are kind of good examples of tasks. So we'll do a nice easy one. We'll do install a sign. If your firm is the person at your front desk orders the sign installation, then install a sign would be a great task to set up as a checklist. So most things in real estate, when you're creating tasks for your brokerage, most things in real estate don't have a specific due date. Like, you're not going to install a sign every October 1st, right? That would be stupid because you might not have the listing yet. So we're really going to relate them to a transaction date or a date something is completed. So a transaction date example would be a good install a sign. So one day after the list date, maybe we want a reminder to go to the front desk to say, hey, install that sign. If you have a sign installation company, you want to be able to say, okay, send it to the sign installation company so they get that reminder to go and put up the sign. You can even attach a document, by the way, a sign installation worksheet or form or whatever you call it at your company. So I want to notify them via email. If something changes, if we go pending right away, I want them to be able to see that. And who else do I want to be notified? If they're on a team, you can also notify others as well about that sign installation. So this is an example of a task. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now that task is basically set up. A checklist is basically just a series of tasks or required documents. So for me, I would get that email notification that I need to order the sign one day before the or one day when the listing comes in. So I'm going to immediately get that notification. A new listing came in. Today is the list date. I want to get that reminder right away to order that sign. So that's kind of a good example of a task. On the brokerage side, though, you really want to set up a series of tasks. It's never just one thing, right? By the way, I'm going to delete this, Bill, so don't worry. We're not going to all get task reminders tomorrow. I'm going to go over here to the left, and I am going to say, I want to, I'm sorry, over here to the left at the bottom, I want to set up a checklist. So I'm going to click on my checklist manager. And these are different checklists that can be applied. Now, you can make these mandatory too. So don't worry. You can not only set them up, but in your templates, you can make these mandatory. So if there are certain items or certain documents that are required, you can set it right into your transaction template that all these things need to be done. So let's just go in and add one so you can kind of get the idea. Some people feel that this is too much oversight. Some people feel like they need more oversight. So it's just personal preference if you want to do this step or not. I always kind of tell people this step is really optional. If you were going to set this up for your office, you would set up office and then the name of your checklist. So a good example would be listing checklist. Okay, so we set up our listing package. This would be something we could apply to it. So checklist items. Here's where you decide what you want to be part of your checklist. Do I want it to be a document? Do I want it to be a mandatory document? If it is a listing checklist, then certainly our listing agreement is definitely going to be required, right? So I'm going to say that I need a mandatory listing agreement turned in here. Who's going to be able to access this? Maybe I want to limit it to certain groups. You can set up groups in here as well. Do I want it to be reviewed by staff? Who's going to be my closing reviewer? And you can associate their accounts to have these roles as well. You can assign it to people, but in this case, I'm just going to say I want my staff to review these required documents. I'm not going to limit access to who on my staff can, but I'm going to require a document. I'm going to make it mandatory. So I'm going to say that. Now what you see right here is this mandatory document is the listing agreement, and they are going to have to attach that listing agreement to that placeholder so that someone in your staff can actually review it. So it tells them the listing agreement is in fact mandatory. Over here, if you make a mistake, again, you can delete it, you can go back, you can edit it. So for the sake of time, because I know I only have a couple of minutes left, you can go in and you can add in required steps, required tasks, or even required documents. So again, if I just wanted to add a task, I could say, again, the list will install a listing sign one day after the list date. Do I want an email reminder? Absolutely. Do I want to assign that to someone? Yes, I can do that as well. Okay, so then I've got my required, I have to give it a name. We'll do install sign and hit save. Okay, so now I have a required task and a required document that's going to be due. So these are just some basic examples. Once you have your checklist all set up, though, you have to apply it if you want it to be mandatory. Agents can go in and use your checklist as optional. However, if you want it to be mandatory, there's one more step. You're going to go back to your templates, and you're going to find that particular, so I'm going to use my Jane listing packet here, so you don't mess up ours. I'm going to go in and I'm going to edit my listing packet. And now I simply want to apply the checklist that I just set up. So I can see, okay, this is going to be my listing checklist. I'm going to add it in. And now my listing checklist will automatically be applied to any agent that's using my package. So again, most brokers don't want to make that mandatory. Some brokers do. If you want to apply a series of forms or a series of tasks, you just go back to your transaction template and apply those series that you've just put together. So I know this is a little more complicated. Got one last step, and that's just your broker settings. Okay, so let's take a look at that. That's going to be up here, and in the opposite spot, right up here to the right, where you kind of see that little picture, that little avatar there. That's where you can control your broker settings. The reason I want to show this real quick is if you have teams in your office. I just got a call from our office, Bill, someone who wanted to be able to share. It was a husband and wife team, and they wanted to be able to see each other's transactions. The one, they basically were a team, and they wanted to be able to help each other if a document needed to be created or something needed to be sent out in Authentisign. So team sharing works like this. You can create a team. So maybe I want to call this the all A team. And I want it to be, let's say, Sandy Alford. So I find her in my big long list here. I want it to be Sandy Alford and Colleen DeLange. We aren't really a team, but just using this for an example here. You find me in my big long list. All right, so I'm just gonna grab two people to make it easier. What permissions do I want to give them? Do I want them to allow and assume each other's identity, meaning see each other's forms and files? Do I want them to only be able to read what the other has created? Or do I want them to be able to even create? So you're giving the ability, but again, only the broker can predetermine this. If a broker has not set up the teams, they can only see what's in their personal account. So teams, if you have a lot of teams and they want to be able to automatically see into each other's files, this is a great way to be able to do that. You can also allow it to automatically be turned on and they can pick themselves. The only thing is if you've got some teams who maybe don't get along so well and it's a little tumultuous, you might not want to use that feature. But if you want to set up the teams, you can actually do that on a brokerage level. That way you're in control of who can see what and who can share on those teams. Okay. All right. Some of the last functionality under settings. Let's just I'm going to go ahead. Don't want to be on a team with Sandy. Sorry about that. All right. So I'm going to go up to the settings one last time here. Over here, they can, if they have like top producer accounts, they can link in different applications. Type management. This is where you can go in and you can predetermine if you want something like a service provider. If you have a title company and you want them to be added here, you can go in and add your own service provider so that when agents are doing transactions, they can see, let's say it's called First Premier Title Company. You can put that right in TransactionDesk so that they can quickly send files over to First Premier Title Company. So you can actually add in service providers. You can add in different types of contacts, if you will. So you can actually control that on a brokerage level, which a lot of our brokers like because you can set it up so that a new title order with one click can be sent to First Premier. So a lot that gets into a little bit more of the advanced stuff, but those are all options that are available to the brokers under your settings. So don't be afraid to go in there. You can always go back to your defaults. So you're not going to mess it up, but this is really, again, where you can go in and set up who you want to be notified, you can set up clauses from here. You can also set up who you want to be on teams from here. So you can even do it at a hierarchy level. All right, so I know probably overwhelming, giving you a lot of great information. Hopefully, I didn't overwhelm you too much. Remember, that's why we record this class so that you can go back at a later time and pick up on something that you may not use all the time. If you've got any questions, now is a great time to throw those in the questions box. Hopefully, you found this a little helpful. Hopefully, Bill, you picked up a couple things maybe that would be helpful. All right, doesn't look like there's any additional questions, so we'll go ahead and wrap up here. Again, when you're looking for that recording, remember under resources, under recorded webinars, is where you will find all of the class recordings. And Paula, I will reach out to you and we will get you set up. Thank you so much for the kind words. It is a very hard class to teach again, because it kind of bounces around and really there is no place to find this information. Even TransactionDesk has such a limited amount of information that really kind of pertains to setting it up as a brokerage. So I appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words. Paula, I'll reach out to you, and for everybody else, hopefully you picked up a couple tips that make it easier for your agents to have all the appropriate information that you get to determine as the agent. So thanks. Have a great day. Enjoy the sunshine and the beautiful weather coming, and happy selling, everybody.